I'm going to show you how I made my own custom dry erase board. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Don't worry, I'm not going to turn my channel into a crafting channel, but every once in a while I like to share some of the projects I make for myself. So, backstory on this, I spent a few weeks trying to find something pretty, a pretty dry erase board or a clipboard of some sort, something that would look nice, that I could take notes down quickly. But I've got notepads all over my desk, and I am constantly jotting down little notes here and there. People who need new replacement postcards, people who need just all kinds of stuff. There's so many notes, and I keep losing them. There's just too many. So now they're all here and nice and clean, and I can erase it when I no longer need it anymore, which is amazing. Now for this, really any frame is going to work, but I wanted something a little bit more custom for my studio. So I used the same paint that I used on my art storage drawers, dresser, whatever we want to call it, and for my backdrop. So I am starting with, I want to say this color is Provence. It's the Annie Sloan chalk paint. And I had a lot of it left over after I painted a few things for my studio, so I figured may as well use this since I've already got a lot of it. So I'm going to use 2 coats on this, and I'm not putting a primer down. If you've not used this stuff, it's great. You don't have to prime anything. It paints over just about everything. You don't even really have to sand most things. The type of wood that you're using will make a difference. But for the things that I've done, I've always used unfinished wood, and so I can just paint right over everything. It doesn't need a primer. Now this chalk paint is fairly expensive. I would not run out and buy this paint just for this project. The only reason I'm using it on this project is I have it left over from my bigger projects in the past. It cost, between this and the wax that you need for it, it ends up costing like $100 for that, and then the brush that you use for the wax. It's a whole series to use this stuff. I love it, but it's not the most cost-efficient way to go for painting little projects like this. Any craft paint would honestly work just fine, and especially on this, because I got an unfinished wood frame, any craft paint would have worked fine. You may have to put a primer down if you're having a hard time getting your colors dark enough, but really anything just blocking in the color. And for me on this one, I'm going to come back through and sand down my edges to give it more of a distressed look. So it doesn't matter to me that everything is perfectly smooth. You can use any latex paint or water-based acrylic paints you get at the hardware store if you have some of those. It's really not that big of a deal which paints you use. On stuff like this, I have used my regular acrylic paints, my Liquitex Basics, but that's probably not one of the most cost-efficient ways to go on these little craft projects. Being that I used the chalk paint, I did wax this first, let it dry, and now I'm sanding my edges. I want it to have a slight distressed look. I don't want to go too crazy. You can make some really cool distressed looks with the chalk paint by using darker stains and other colors with that. I just want to slightly rough up my edges. So I'm sanding that down. Now that that's out of the way and the outside edge of the frame is done, I'm using double-sided tape, and I'm taping down scrapbooking pages to the board for the back of the frame. Now, one thing that happened with this one, I didn't realize it at the time, this cardboard that it came with is super flimsy, like ridiculously cheap flimsy. I will probably eventually end up switching this out with a heavier weight board, something that's a little bit higher quality. So the double-sided tape didn't work that great on this because it started to have gaps where the board would kind of bend once I had installed it into the frame. So after this, I ended up going back through, and you won't see this on the video, but I used an adhesive spray by Krylon and sprayed the back of all of the paper and stuck it on the board that way so that there wasn't any gap as that board kind of bent. But if you've got a nicer frame that is not so flimsy for this backboard, then you can just use the double-sided tape like I'm using here. And if you don't have the spray adhesive, you can use double-sided tape even if the board is flimsy. I would just use a lot more tape than what I used. I was just using one piece on each edge. So once you get that attached, however you want, and you can use an old piece of fabric, you can use anything. I'm going to carefully slide in that glass, hopefully without cutting myself. Those edges are sharp. Now I'm going to take Windex and clean the inside of the glass, get rid of all of my fingerprints. Now I can slide my board in, close the little tabs. One of the tabs fell out, so I'm trying to shove that back in there. That's what happens when you buy cheap frames. And that is it. Now I have a very pretty dry erase board, much prettier than the plain white ones, which just did not go with my decor. And that is it. Now when you choose your background color or background paper, you can use scrapbooking paper like I did here. You can use a piece of fabric. Just make sure whatever you use is fairly muted and kind of light in color. You don't want a lot of contrast. Otherwise, your dry erase marker is not going to show up against it. Now, my favorite thing about this is everything erases off this so much cleaner and easier than your typical whiteboard. I hate how dirty whiteboards look all the time. Look, I even used it to sketch out my idea for next week's painting. Although by the time this video goes up, that painting will have already been up, so it's like time travel. Thanks for watching. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, art Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs, or sometimes crafts, every Saturday. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, that was hard to say. All those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I am currently working on. I'll see you guys in a few days.